Hello. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about graphing 101. So even before you draw those lines or you've seen those lines, right, you're thinking to yourself, what am I supposed to do, right? Because you're going to be freaking out. You're going to, well, maybe not freaking out, but I've known some really good students who stress out when they learn about graphs. All right? So, essentially, when you hear the word plot, like you may think of, what's the plot of the movie, what's going on. Essentially, when we're plotting data, we're trying to show how the data is related. Remember, there's going to be a connection to these numbers. All right? So, essentially, what we're going to be doing is we're also sometimes wondering if our numbers are going to be nice and linear, or what we call almost like a straight line. And then sometimes we're going to have something called a scatter version, which means the numbers are going to be all over the place. All right? So remember, when you're also drawing your x and y axis, you also have to figure out, okay, what are your scales? What is your units going to look like? And the reason why I bring this up is because you may not want to start from 0 and go all the way up to the number that you're looking at. So if we go back to the very first video, right, we talked about these numbers here, and we don't want to necessarily go from 0 and then go $1, $2, $3, or start off with 0, 75 cents. So my point is that you want to make sure that these numbers are accurately spaced apart and that they are going to allow your graph to be functional. Because if you try to include every single number on your graph, this graph is going to end up looking like something that's really hard to read and really overwhelming. So just remember, guys, that scatter plots are kind of cool, okay? The scatter plot is essentially when you have numbers on the x and y, and it's almost like as if you threw something on the ground and and there was a scatter of something, or maybe you have there's a bunch of kids and you say, hey, go do something, and the kids scatter. Essentially, that's what it's going to look like. So, as I said before, what we're essentially trying to do is we're trying to actually make sense of these graphs. All right? So, if I was wanting to understand the relationship between the number of tacos and the quantity people will purchase, this is where a nice scatter plot is going to help me. Now, as I said before, sometimes the numbers could scatter and look like this, and we have to try to figure out how is this going to best fit what we're talking about. Or sometimes the numbers could just scatter in a nice, neat, orderly way. And even in that case, we would find that it would make life a lot easier. So, and in some of your math classes, you may actually be doing this when it comes to looking at scatter plots. meaning the numbers may not always line up nice and neat. You may have to sort of figure out what's the best way to capture these type of relationships. All right, so hopefully that little video made sense. But as I said before, just to remind you guys that we're plotting data, we're plotting numbers, we're plotting, remember, a relationship. We're plotting a connection. We're also having to make sure that our numbers are scaled properly. So you're going to see in a few minutes, it's going to be a problem involving dollars and thousands. So we want to make sure that we can kind of scale those so the graph makes sense. We want to make sure we label the X and Y properly.